Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, with my co-host, JC.
Hey, that's me. How are you?
Hey, JC. We are going to be talking about some tips and tricks to get ChatGPT to work for your business needs. So what do you have for our listeners?
You know, when you've got great friends in the industry, like the HR lady, Wendy Sellers, or other people, it provides you that opportunity to sometimes ask them questions or contract their time to receive the proper education, let's say. Depending on your business and where you are, you might have a resident expert that you could lean on. Think with me for a moment. In this example, you are a small business owner. You are not well versed in anything human resources. You don't have a lawyer on retainer yet, but you're looking for some general advisement to get you started before you reach out and contact an experienced HR professional as a consultant, like the HR lady, Wendy Sellers. So what you could do, though, is you could turn to ChatGPT like I did. And I asked it, what are the best qualities of an expert in human resources? So ChatGPT replied, strong communication skills, and gave me a paragraph. Strategic thinking gave me more. Strong business acumen, and explained what that is in the HR space. Flexibility, adaptability, empathy, expertise in HR practices and regulations. And it gave a very long write-out about what all that is and continuous learning. It was a very long answer that it gave me. So I replied to it, and I said, acting as an HR expert, skilled in all areas of your last answer to me. Please explain to me things to consider when hiring people in the state of Florida. So ChatGPT replied to me. Now, Wendy Sellers, you get a chance to double-check ChatGPT here. Live on the air. Surprised you didn't even know this was going to happen. So I said, and it said, as an HR expert, here's some things to consider when hiring people in the state of Florida. It said employment laws. Florida has its own set of employment laws that employers must comply with. Florida is an at-will employment state, which means that employers can terminate an employee's employment for any reason as long as it is not discriminatory. It is important to be familiar with Florida's employment laws and ensure hiring practices comply with them. Now, when I look at that, it looks fantastic. I read it. I feel empowered. But the reality is there's some holes there. Am I right?
Yeah, so it's funny. While you were surprising me with this, I went to ChatGPT and I asked it two different questions. One was vague and one was a little more specific. And I came up with a list of items as well. So my question was, what laws and forms should I be aware of as a new small business in the USA? And it basically gave me information from a business owner's perspective. And it's a long list, and they explain the list. Number one, business registration. Number two, tax forms, but it was tax forms for the employer. And then it said number three, employment laws, and then it was pretty vague on that. Number four, IP. Number five, contracts, privacy laws, number six, and then insurance. So then I asked a better question. I said, what laws and forms should I be aware of as a new small business with employees in the USA? And now it gave me a different, similar list, but it talks about, like in this one, employment laws, minimum wage, overtime, worker classification. And then number two was employee tax forms, W-4, 941, which is a tax form that the employer has to send in, Form W-2, workers' comp, immigration, FMLA, ACA, payroll processing. So it's super important to ask the right question.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're not going to know the right question until you look at the answer. You're like, that's not really what I was looking for.
Right. I'm going to need some more. Or it might give me a basis to start with to build my framework, to get a general idea out of my head so that I could then turn to an HR consultant and maybe have things formalized a little bit better, and they could help me further pave that road.
Yeah, 100%. Or you could go like, I need help, but I don't know what I need. But these are the questions that I have. And then you could, get the information from ChatGPT and say, okay, now I know what kind of consultant or advisor that I need to go and ask questions for, because I don't do the same HR consulting as another HR consultant. And so we need to say, like, what am I really trying to ask here? And that can give you the facts, but always remember, it's a tool. So make sure you verify the data that it gives you.
So I also went on to ask it, is this legal advice? After it gave me a very long answer. And it was very clear. It replied and said, no, my response is not legal advice. As an AI language model, I am not authorized to provide legal advice or legal opinions. So it's just informational, something to remain aware of. And then you could also have fun with this thing. What's an obscure employment law in the state of Florida? And one relatively obscure employment law in the state of Florida is the Florida drug-free workplace program. It's obscure, and it was established in 1990 to promote drug-free workplaces and requires employers maintain drug-free workplace programs to include drug testing for certain employees. I'm not sure why that would be classified as obscure, but that's really interesting.
I know why.
Tell me.
Why. So basically, you can, as an employer, just say in your handbook, we're a drug-free workplace, which means you can't be on drugs if you work here. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are doing drug testing. It's just saying, I'm just telling you, you can't be on drugs or this kind of drug or that drug. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing drug testing. Now, it is also connected to workers' comp. So if your workers' comp insurance is, you get, I want to say, I'm going to say the percentage wrong, but it's like a couple of percentages off of your workers' comp policy if you say you're a drug-free workplace and if you do drug testing. And so there's all these different ways to say you're drug-free workplace, but it doesn't really mean anything if you're not doing drug testing or if you haven't trained your managers how to, visually spot that somebody may be impaired, but you still can't accuse them of it because it could be something else. So that's where it comes in, that it's obscure. And so it was right.
Yeah, but your explanation from a human perspective was extremely valuable. I didn't get that right off the bat in the answer.
Yeah, so you would have to ask even more. You could probably ask him more question. Can you explain why this is obscure? And maybe it will, be explained a little bit better. The point is, it's data and it's the way you ask questions. With that said, in our next episode coming up, we want to talk about just some final advice. We want to see into the future because we're magicians. We want to talk about advice regarding AI moving forward. We'll be right back.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.